customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DeJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. This week, John talks to Joe Stanoszek, founder of VioMed Spa. In less than a decade, Joe took VioMed Spa from a small spa room in the back of a tanning salon to the fastest growing med spa in the country. In this episode, you'll learn about Joe's humble beginning, how he got started in the med spa industry, how VioMed Spa has become the fastest growing med spa in the country, how Joe is currently the Chief Innovation Officer today, and what he is most proud of. Now here's your host, John DeJulius.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am John DeJulius, Chief Revolution Officer, and today I am so excited to be talking to Joe Stanoszek. I hope I said that right, Joe. Founder of VioMed Spa, and he just has an incredible story. I can't wait to get in. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And did I say it right, Joe?
You got it. Stanoszek. Right. You got it.
Good. Stanoszek. So let me kind of tell our listeners our brief story, and you can fill it in where I'm missing. But I know we've met previously to, a month or two ago. I remember meeting you, but I've just heard about you from a lot of people. My son, Cal, is like your biggest fan, your business, VioMed Spa's biggest fan. Always telling me about this guy, Joe, and how amazing the med spas are. And again, I've been hearing a lot about you, but I really didn't know how big and how incredible it was until you brought me in, I don't know, August? When was your franchisee conference?
Yes, August, yeah. End of August. Yep.
Yeah. And so you brought me in to keynote it for your annual franchisee conference. And, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, like this is like the real deal. I mean, there was 200 people in there and, just seeing, I mean, this thing is just exploding. And then we've started communicating a lot and just love the business model, love your story. So I really wanted to have my audience hear your story, your passion, how you grew this from a back of the room tanning salon into what appears to be over 200 franchisees going on. So I get that first part right about our story and kind of the evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And, first and foremost, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on the show and glad to give you more information about me.
Good. I'm excited. So, Joe, let's first talk about, your background. I know you've kind of been an entrepreneur for, since 2009, I think, in different businesses until you opened what was formerly known as Skin Deep Laser Spa.
Yeah.
So before that, you grew up in Cleveland?
Yeah, grew up in Cleveland.
Great place to grow up. And, my audience can't see you, but you look like someone you don't want to bump into and spill a beer on. You look like a middle linebacker that played professional football. But the funny thing is, so how tall are you, Joe? 6
foot. Yeah,
6 foot,
250. Yep.
250. Yeah, pure muscle, just for the, my audience can't see. But I just found out that you were the skinny, 90-pound kid that used to get sand kicked in his face, so to speak, right? It's crazy to know that you were, too small when you were growing up.
Yeah. So growing up, I had what's called hyperpituitarism. When I graduated high school, I was 4'9", 95 pounds. And I had a day.
When you graduated from high school?
Graduated high school.
You were 4'9".
Yeah, 95
That
pounds.
blows my mind only because I could relate. I was 4'11" when I entered high school. And that was like, I probably told you this. Everyone thought I was like a junior high visiting my high school, like see if I wanted to go there. Like no one could believe I was actually a student. And that was when I was 14. I shot up to the 5'5" I am today by the time I graduated, but I can't believe you were 4'9" when you graduated high school at 18.
Yeah, I was really small. I had to take growth hormone to grow. It didn't work. So then going into my freshman year of college, I had to take testosterone therapy in order to spike
Now, Joe,
it.
let me ask you this. I'm sorry, because my kids were on that because they were all my 3 boys, but it was kind of new for them. And you're, a good, 10 to 20 years older than them. Were you one of the first? I mean, I didn't know it has been around that long. When you got on it, you had to be one of the first to be on growth hormone and testosterone.
Yeah, we went to doctors all over Northeast Ohio trying to find someone that can identify the issue, what was going on, how they can fix it, and so on and so forth. And we ended up going to this doctor in Akron Children's Hospital, and he was a specialist. So we went to him, and after the growth hormone was not working, they actually put me on to testosterone therapy like I was going into. And in the summer going into my freshman year of college, so from June to August, I grew 9 inches, and I gained between about 60 to 70 pounds in that summer.
So did they do growth hormone tests back then? Because I remember when they've done it on my kids, I forget what age, whatever you call that. Like my kid was like, let's say my kid was 11, but his age plate, I forget what you call it, said he was like 6. What's it called?
A bone age. So they take
bone age, yeah. So what did they think you were at 18? What did your bones think you were?
I can't remember. They said that when I think the max I was going to grow to was 5'9", as long as they can get it under control. And I was about 5'9" until my junior year, actually senior year of college, and then I hit a growth spurt. Another little growth spurt right after, but I grew about another 3 inches.
That's crazy because, just from my experience with my sons, you have to get it before your growth plates.
Until they close, yeah.
Yeah, until they close.
Yep.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, I wish I would have had that opportunity. And we're talking about legal testosterone. You weren't doing the, Sammy Sosa, A-Rod testosterone, right?
That's right.
That's awesome. I always ask this because I still have that. I think that inside me, I still, don't forget that do you still have that inside you subconsciously, the 4'9" kid that probably, I guess, was picked on or made fun of, because how can you not be at 4'9" as a 17-year-old?
Actually, I never was. I mean, believe it or not, I never was. Yeah, I was just.
You went to a nice school.
Yeah, I was. Luckily, it's sad nowadays. Kids are getting bullied left and right.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was not. I had a lot of good friends growing up.
That's
from grade school. They always had my back. And that was always great.
But you couldn't have gotten a date in high school at 4'9".
Oh yeah, that was a little trouble. That was a little hard back then. I mean, I was knee high to a grasshopper who's wanted to date someone.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I to this day, 40 years later, I still have a chip on my shoulder, which works for me in a lot of things. But I know it stems from being the smallest kid in the school. I mean, like you could have held me back 2 years, I'd still be the smallest kid in the class.
Yeah, the one thing about me too is, I never, to this day, like I could be in a room and I still don't feel like I'm that big.
That's what I mean. Subconsciously, you're the little guy, right?
The guy there. Yeah.
You're a monster in a room, like, and you're intimidating to look at, but you're the friendliest guy I've ever met. But yeah, I still feel that way. Not that I'm grown that much, but I still kind of have that subconscious small guy syndrome.
Yeah. I was at an event yesterday, and all these people are coming up talking to me like, "What are you? Are you a linebacker? You play football? You're a wrestler?" I'm thinking to myself, I don't feel, when I'm talking to somebody, I don't even feel like I'm that big. But I guess.
Yeah, you just gotta look in the mirror.
Yeah.
All right. So Joe, you go off to college, Mount Union, get a degree, and then you worked a little bit in the corporate world, and then you started off as an entrepreneur. And I know you went from a dry cleaner, and then a few years later, you opened a chain of tanning salons, which is kind of surprising because I think you did it around 2009. 2010.
Right. Yep.
And tanning salons were kind of out, weren't they kind of losing their? We had a tanning bed in '92 in our first spa. So, what made you try the tanning salons?
So take one step backwards.
Yeah,
with the dry cleaning. So the dry cleaning.
That's your first business.
So so I got into dry cleaning in, I think it was around 2007, right?
Yep.
2006, around there. And dry cleaning was huge then, but then everything shifted to business casual. So everybody was wearing business casual things to work. So dry cleaning started going down. Go figure, right? As soon as I was getting into it. And so then I shifted into tanning. And as I was getting into tanning, they introduced the tanning tax, and in tanning,
we all got that. Yeah.
So I got into both markets at the kind of the tail end of it, where everybody was making all their money. I still made decent amount, but not as much as everybody did in the prior years. So fast forward in, I think it was 2013, I was approached by one of my customers to want to open a laser spa. So I called a buddy of mine who I know is in the industry. I called him, I asked him what lasers were the best ones to get and how I would do in it. He's like, Joe, you'll do a great job. You crushing all the things you've done. You'll do a great job. You're great at sales. So I said, all right, I'll take this laser and I'll take this laser. Got those two lasers. I called a construction guy, got that construction guy to come in. He was there the following day. She came back on the third day. What do you think? Do you want to do this? I already bought the lasers. I got construction going in the back. I didn't get permits. I had them working on it at night, and I had to bootstrap it, So I did that. Like I said, we opened.
All right. So you have at this point, 2013, you have a tanning salon, and in the back, you turned a closet into because we did this too, not with the med spa, but when we were a hair salon, we had like a couple extra closets. We're like, what should we do? Oh, let's throw a massage bed in there and see if we can sell any massages, right? It's kind of the same thing. All right, so you have this one room, laser. What's the laser do?
So laser hair removal. Actually,
hair removal. Okay.
Yeah, I created a whole lobby, second lobby of that. So you go around the building.
A separate entrance. Good.
Oh, yeah. I created a separate entrance and everything. So I tried to make it as intimate as possible. And so we get that going with laser hair removal. And then I got into injectables. And then from injectables, Botox, fillers, things like that. And this is in 2013, where Botox back then was very new. Not many people were doing it in Cleveland. But I grew to be,
and the ones that were doctors' offices,
or in some dentists. Yeah. We grew to be the top Botox provider within about 5 months in Cleveland. So,
and is this still with one location?
This is just one location in the back of a tanning salon.
Was it still called Skin Deep Laser Spa? Okay,
Skin Deep Laser Spa. Yep. So from there, we grew out of that space quite quickly. We grew down the street. I added tattoo removal. I had an esthetician and things like that.
Still have the tanning beds, or are you getting rid of them?
Business. That was a separate business.
This is a different location now.
Yeah.
Second one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so tattoos.
We moved from the back of the tanning salon to a bigger location. We just grew out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to take the risk because it was a new business, right? So if it didn't work out at minimum,
at the new location.
I had that in the back. So it wasn't a big deal.
The tanning was a fallback, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So, but it worked out well. So we grew to a bigger location. And within about 1.5 years, we actually grew out of that spot. I had to go to a bigger location with more rooms. So I went.
And your primary business now is what? As you're growing here?
At that point, my primary business was med spa because it was just growing so fast.
And what kind of services were you offering? Laser removal,
laser hair removal, tattoo removal, skin rejuvenation, and injectables and like estheticians and things like that.
So why don't you also offer tattoos and you get them both ways? I'm just kidding. I'm so kidding.
Yeah, I'll actually get into why we don't do tattoos anymore. And
I didn't know you did.
Yeah, we do tattoo removal, but we got out of it because yeah, I'll get into that.
Yeah.
So we in about 2017, 2018-ish, I think it was 2017, I met these guys that do franchise development. And they came to me and say, hey, we really want to take your business. We want to explode it. We want to make this into all over the country. I always had big dreams of, wanting to own multiple locations, right? But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that it would come to this, being nationwide. So we met with those guys. And at that time, like, again, I said We were called Skin Deep Medi Spa this time. Okay. So they're like, Joe, the first thing we got to do is we got to change your name. I'm like, guys, I'm not changing my name. This is, I'm concrete on that. That's one thing I'm not doing.
Right.
We spent months trying to think of a new name. We couldn't find one. I mean, we spent months, hours and hours every Friday trying to think of a new name. So from there, we finally narrowed it down to 3 names, and all of which I hated. And I had a week to figure out which of those 3 names I wanted to use. Well, I was at Town Hall, a restaurant here in Cleveland, and I was drinking bone broth, of all things. And on the lid, it said
What's bone broth?
Pardon me?
What's bone broth?
Bone broth is
a drink, a cocktail, a beer?
No, it's almost like a soup, right? But it's healthy. It's very healthy. Imagine if you're sick or something.
Okay.
It's essentially the broth of chicken noodle soup. Right?
Okay.
It's very healthy for you, rich in many different things, great for collagen and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But, so I was drinking this, and on the lid it said Viora, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, Viora, VioMed Spa. So that's where I got my name, VioMed Spa. And I called the guys. I'm like, guys, what do you think about this name, Vio? And they're like, love it. What does it mean? I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. I just came out. I got it from a lid. You like it, yes or no? And they loved it, so we went with it. So then we backed into the name, value in ourselves. A name doesn't have to mean anything.
Listen, if you think about it, what the heck does Starbucks mean?
Exactly.
It's one of the most successful businesses in the world, but it doesn't tell you what they do. And if you didn't know it, it wasn't like, oh, they must sell coffee, right? So, yeah, in a way, there's a lot of companies that, their name didn't mean squat, but they did, they crushed it.
Yeah. So we grew off of that. And what happened is a lot of people were like looking at the name, as we started to grow, people are like, Vio. I'm like, it's not Vio, it's Vio. So then we changed our logo a little bit so that when you looked at it, it said VO, and the slash in the middle was the I, but it was kind of diagonal. That's whatever. So that's how we came up with VO.
All right. So now you rebranded VioMed Spa.
Yep.
How many locations at this point?
At this point, as of I think just yesterday, we opened our
No. I'm sorry. When you rebranded.
At that location, we hadn't opened one.
It was just the one. It was, okay. It was just your original.
Just as a background, to open a franchise, you need at least one location, a full year under that name to start a franchise.
To have a pro forma, right?
Pardon me?
For a pro forma to demonstrate, the business model.
So, for the FDD, you need one full year to show what you're doing under that name. So we operated under 1 year under that name, VO, and that's how we went. We sold our first location. That was in Jacksonville. And now he's got 2 locations. But, if you want to fast forward.
When did you sell your first location? What year?
That was in 2018.
Wow. And so it's 2023, the fall.
Yeah.
How many locations are open?
30 are open.
30 are open.
We'll have between 40 to 50 open by the end of the year.
This year, in the next 3.5 months. Wow.
Yeah.
And you've already have committed to how many locations?
250 locations committed.
250 locations you've sold.
Yep.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And all over the U.S.?
Yeah. We're the fastest growing med spa in the country.
At the DeJulius Group, we know how difficult it is to provide an outstanding customer experience, especially when expectations are so high. That's why we created a framework that systematizes the experience you deliver. Our consultants use that framework as they work with your team to create a world-class brand experience that can be delivered simply and consistently, without affecting productivity or adding special software. Are you ready to be world-class? Visit tdg.click/Claudia to schedule a call and get started today. That's tdg.click/Claudia.
Fastest growing med spa in the country. Why?
I believe in how our team works. We work and I believe this in a lot of Midwest companies. We work as more so a team, where a lot of people I see a lot of other med spas are too structured, right? Where I believe that you have to work more so as a family in order to things, when you're growing like this, you can't, some of these, I've seen some of my competitors bring in these big CEOs, and you know what changes when you bring in those big CEOs? Culture changes. And when culture changes, everything starts falling apart, and the one thing that we are grounded on is our culture. And you were at our conference, and everybody acts as a big family. And we had a big party at the end of our conference, and to see everybody enjoying themselves and having a great time, that is the thing. That's what I built. That's what I'm so happy about. I thrive on culture, and I think
so.
That's
You bring up a good point. You bring up a good point here, which I love what you do here. So we've all seen the Steve Jobs stories get replicated. On the opposite end, you have the entrepreneur who starts a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he or she's passionate. Maybe they were the technician. Steve Jobs was the geek. Bill Gates was the geek. But it didn't mean they necessarily knew how to run the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And overnight now they're a multi-million-dollar business on their way to be $1 billion business, and then they have to bring in an outside CEO who has the gray hair to because they don't know it. You keep it the original culture and the vision, but the thing that I found surprising is while you're the founder, you're not the CEO or president of VioMed Spa franchise, or, I call you the chief innovation officer. And you have brought in, I don't know if they brought in or if they started with you, people to do the job that you don't think you're suited for. So let's talk about that. Why'd you do it, and where'd you find them?
Yeah, so the guys who came to me and wanted to franchise it, they're called Apex Franchise Development Group, and they were made up of a team of a group of guys, right? Well, Ryan Rao, who's our chief development officer, he handles all the franchise sales, right? Ryan Rose, he is our CEO currently, and he's part of that group, and he does a phenomenal job, right? And then you have my brother.
I met him. He's awesome.
He's a great guy, yeah.
Yeah,
and
he's smart.
Oh, yeah. And, let me take a step back real quick. Like you said, I'm a firm believer in, if you're not confident of doing the job yourself, it's better to put the people who are in charge, who are better at doing that job, in charge. My strength is not running the company. My strength is culture and working with people, coming up with new ideas. I'd rather put someone that's better at doing something in that position and let me work where my strengths are. My strength is not being a CEO. My brother's coming in here in the company very soon, and he'll be chief development or chief operating officer, working with franchisees and the whole operations of the company. And he's very good at that. And I'd rather put those people in those positions than me. It just makes the company run a lot smoother.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, because a lot of people, can't let go. They can't delegate. That's the number one thing I think I have found with entrepreneurs who can't grow because they can't let go. Yeah. Everything from they want to wear every hat. They think they're saving money by licking stamps and putting them on envelopes. And it's like, no, what do you do the best? Because that's taken away from you being able to dedicate. And I'm similar to you, Joe. Everyone gives me a lot of credit for, my businesses. And I, other than, like you, the vision, I don't run the day-to-day in any of them. Right. What I do, I have people who have been with me 25 years and they're managing partners, and they lose sleep at night over the day to day. And, my value is creating new content, presenting, podcasting, writing books. And if I had to do the stuff that they do, and God bless them, A, I wouldn't do it as well. But B, I wouldn't be able to do the stuff I do well at all, or I'd fast track it and not do it as well. So no, I give you so much credit for not needing to have the ego title of, I'm head honcho here, and that you relinquished it to people that are better suited for that. So you can worry about what 2028 looks like and 2035. And that's how you're going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. You got to recognize your weaknesses. That's how you grow.
Actually, I think it's you recognizing your strengths, right?
No.
And focusing on that.
Yeah.
So this is just a crazy story. Sales growth as a total organization. Do you know what you guys are on pace for this year?
On pace as far as what?
So total sales, and yeah.
So sales I can't get into only because we're allowed to pay with our FTD and stuff like that.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, it's just incredible that you're going to have how many locations opened by the end of this year?
Between 40 and 50 locations open by the end of the year.
Wow. And over 250 committed. And how long will it take to get those open?
About 5 years. We'll have those open in 5 years. Yep. And we have some right now because we're getting so much attention in the private equity sector. So in these we have what's called area reps, and we have private equity that's actually looking to back some of these area reps right now because they're so interested in the space and they want to get into it. So
let me make sure I and my listeners understand what an area rep is. I believe from my experience working with other franchisees, an area rep, and correct me if I have it wrong, is I could own, South Ohio, whatever, Columbus,
correct.
And I can open locations or resell them to franchisees. Is that what an area rep is?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Or they can open the whole area.
Use it themselves. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So these private equities are coming in to fuel growth. And to really, this industry is growing by 2026, it'll grow up by over 300% from today.
And do you think that's because the boomers are at an age where, they're falling apart, and I'm a boomer, but physically wrinkles, all that, or why is it growing?
I think it's because people are, our biggest, what's the word what I want to say is
opportunity.
Our biggest, what we noticed after COVID, right? COVID was our biggest boost, if you will, because what did people do during COVID? They were on Zoom calls all day. And when they're on Zoom calls, what's happening?
You're noticing the crow's feet, the bags.
Right, exactly. They're noticing all their flaws. So people are becoming more and more comfortable with improving how they look. And, when you improve how you look, you have more confidence. And when you have more confidence, your day-to-day life is you
100%,
right?
100%.
So that's why this industry is growing and it's booming so much. So that's why it's you see this exponential growth right now.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, I'm in the spa business, my first business. We're not really competitors because of what you do. We do more of the traditional massage, facial, pedicures, where you're in the medical spa business, which is completely different. But at the end of the day, people are coming to both of our types for the same thing. And what I say is we help put a bounce in people's step. Right. Yeah. And if I feel I look better, if I feel I look younger, if I feel I look skinnier. Right. And there's a myth that I always love to dispel. The myth is people that are more successful have higher self-esteem. And that's not true at all. People that have higher self-esteem become more successful. Right. So, I say, and I don't know if I talked about this when I spoke at your conference, but I say, I tell my staff in that salon and spa business is you want to make price irrelevant. You want to retain customers, sell the bounce. And what I mean by that is the bounce in the step. And if you could make that woman stand up from her pedicure, manicure, facial, haircut, whatever it is, highlights, and make her feel her closest to her 10 is that she can, not only physically, but emotionally, psychologically, does she have a better chance of going from, leaving our place to the sales pitch? Does she have a better chance of closing that sale or getting the job that she's interviewing for, or her first date with someone, right? I mean, those are all the ripple effects of what VioMed Spa is doing for people. Is they're putting the bounce in their step. They're making them feel better about themselves, and then the rest is like a domino effect.
I mean, granted, we backed into the name, but look, value in ourselves. We want to put that bounce in people's step.
I love
you know?
that. I love that. And the other thing, what I love, and probably why about what your vision about working with your company is your commitment to the customer experience, right? And so, that's always been a big part of you, and I know all your businesses. So talk a little bit about that, of the customer experience. Cal, my son, who's been a long time customer of yours, just talks about, it's always a great experience. That's how I really got to know you, Dad. This VioMed Spa, this Joe, and how you've created a great experience, and without needing to overstaff it. That's what he always talked about, which intrigued me. So talk about what your philosophy on customer experience and why that's always been so important to you.
Yeah, and that's one thing, if my worst nightmare is someone messaging me and say, Joe, I didn't have a good experience. Well, okay, well, why didn't you have a good experience? That's my worst nightmare of happening, Thank God it doesn't happen, but I just want to make sure that anybody that goes in there and anybody that we hire is going to treat that person like they're number one. You're going to walk in there. We're going to know your name. We're going to know your birthday. We're going to know all these things that are important to you so that when you come in, you're special. And you touched on that a little bit in your speech when you came to us. And that's exactly the message I want to give to people. I want to have that relationship when every time you come in and just make you feel so special. And I want to make that feel everybody. And I do that in my daily life.
Right.
That's how I portray everything. I want everyone to feel special all the time. You know what I mean? I put people before myself a lot of times because I just like making people feel good. And
it shows. And Joe, that's the brilliance to this, and why I'm attracted to, what you're doing is, the hardest part, and I know this, is you were able to do that when it was a couple of locations, and now you're at 30, about to be at 40 or 50, about to be at 250. And you don't want someone to feel or realize necessarily, a customer, client, guest, whatever we may call them, that you have 250 locations. You just want them to feel like you have one. I go to VioMed Spa in Strongsville, and then when someone else tells them, do you know that they're all over the U.S.? No way, right? Because what and just so scaling that personalization, that it making them feel not like a 1030, but John or Joe.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is and I think you mentioned this in your speech, and maybe you didn't, but one thing I think a lot of business owners, make a mistake on, the customer is not always right. Okay. They're not always right. A lot of times they are, but there's a lot of times that they're not. And I will stick up for my employees at any time. If the customer's in the wrong, I will stick up for them. And you know what that does for the employee? That makes them know that they're valued by you. And they'll go to leaps and bounds to make sure all customers are treated better. And it's almost effortless at that point because they know you always have their back, and they'll do anything to make sure that business succeeds. We're going to different locations right now in different states, and it's flattering when you hear, we're me and my brother, we're hiring in North Carolina right now, and it's great to hear that they know what kind of culture we have and they want to work for us, and that's just amazing. That to me is amazing because they know how well we treat our employees. So
yeah, that's everything. And that's great. So Joe, for my listeners, I'm going to include VioMed Spa website, because there might be a VioMed Spa in your neighborhood.
And if there's not,
also, right. And maybe one of my listeners can become your next franchisee. If there isn't one in their neighborhood, you could open it. So I'm sure on your website is franchisee opportunities, correct?
Yeah, there is franchise opportunities, correct.
You could also connect with Joe on LinkedIn, which will be in the show notes, and you can reach out to him. I'm providing the show notes, Joe's email, which he's generously sharing. Joe, your success is incredible. Your story is incredible. And I believe you're just scratching the surface. I'm going to be really proud in 10 or 15 years when you're a household name, when VioMed Spa is a household name, and I get to show them this interview that we did back in the day. When you're just scratching the surface. You're also a first-class human being. Everyone I've ever met just has the highest praises. My experience in the past couple months of working with you and your team only confirms that. What, of all the things, personally, professionally, what are you most proud of?
I'm getting a little choked up here to say this, but your speech when you spoke to us, you mentioned when you were younger, I think you graduated with 1 point. I forget what your GPA was or whatever, but
I was dead last. I was dead last.
My freshman year of college, I got a 1.5 my first semester, and it makes you when you are that young and I had growth deficiency issues and I was immature in mindset, right? And it makes you wonder, like, am I going to become something? You know what I mean? Am I going to become something?
100%. 100%.
And that, to me, seeing when I was on that stage, for our conference, it's just seeing everybody out there and knowing, look, anybody can do anything. It's what you put your mind to, hard work, not giving up, being loyal to people. Everything will come forward, and that's the biggest thing for me is that hit home with when you said that. So I appreciate
that's
that.
Great.
And, it doesn't matter what kind of grades you get. I mean, granted, you got to work hard, but you got to put the effort toward, and you can achieve anything. So
that's awesome. And you have, and you are, and you're making a difference and an impact. I mean, listen, there's going to be 200 entrepreneurs that have, a booming business as a result of your vision and what you started. And then not to mention the hundreds, tens of thousands of team members that they're going to have, and then their customers that they're going to touch. So I love what you're doing, Joe. I'm very impressed in all aspects of your life. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, Revolutionaries, thank you for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. Did you enjoy this episode? Consider leaving us a review. We value your feedback and love to hear how you're using the podcast in your organization. To hear more, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being part of the Customer Service Revolution.